Hello, I'm Tim Loughton, Member of Parliament for East Worthing and Shoreham. An angry Member of Parliament for East Worthing and Shoreham, because I've just come from a meeting with the management of GTR, the people who run Southern trains, together with a lot of other Sussex MPs who've come up to Westminster today to talk to us about the problems they are having. But it's not the problems they are having, it's the problems that my constituents, passengers, thousands of them, are having day in, day out at the moment, trying to get to their jobs, getting home in the evening, getting to school, getting to colleges, and so on. And frankly, it's absolutely appalling. Now, when we had the meeting this morning, I just ran off the latest performance figures. I've been running these off 3 times a day, and just today, the performance measure was just 66% of their target. That's only 66% of trains run by GTR are arriving within 5 minutes of their scheduled time. Last week, on one afternoon, that figure was down to 42%. It's woeful. Too many trains being cancelled, too many trains arriving or starting late, still too many trains skipping stations, particularly late stations, leaving people stranded. In many cases, I've been told about people having to get taxis home late at night. Now, like every other Sussex MP, I've been inundated with emails and with social media complaining about the service from Southern. I entirely appreciate and sympathise with that. I've been caught in it, as have my staff, many times. I don't have to come up and down to London every single day. Many people rely on that for their jobs and their livelihoods. Now, we know that they've got underlying problems at GTR. We had a big summit here with the Rail Minister, with Network Rail, with Passenger Focus, with lots of MPs back in January. Those problems are to do with the big development of London Bridge. We understand that. Those problems are to do with the still big infrastructure weaknesses they have on this out-of-date, frankly, stretch of line that's existed since the 1930s. Constant signal failures, points failures and things like that. Those things are being worked on. But what has really exacerbated the problem is the current industrial dispute, where GTR are trying to bring in new practices so that we have driver-only trains, and conductors will instead be redeployed, nobody's going to be sacked, redeployed to assist in other roles on the trains. Now, that's something that GTR offered to do as part of its franchise. I think ultimately it makes sense, particularly with the way technology works those trains these days. But there is a dispute with the unions, which clearly has not been handled very well. And we've had a few days of strike action by rail drivers, but we've also had a huge spike now in conductors ringing in supposedly sick. Bit of a coincidence that sickness levels seem to have gone through the roof whilst this dispute is going on. Clearly, all sides need to be handling it better. The situation is that both sides are at ACAS at the moment. There's been no progress so far, it seems. There's another meeting next Monday, and what all of us urge is, for goodness sake, let's come to some agreement as soon as possible, because it's the passengers that are suffering. And what really struck me in this meeting this morning is we had loads of excuses, all the things I've just told you about. We had all the reasons why management are doing this, management are doing that. We heard very little about the effect on the passengers. And at the end of the day, those train companies got their franchise in order to run a train system to deliver passengers from point A to point B. That is their whole point of being. That is their number one priority. And clearly they are not doing it. And I think they are taking passengers for a ride. Unfortunately, not literally in this case. Now, I've had complaints from constituents about a series of cancelled trains, about really poor communication, that they only hear at the last moment that the train's been cancelled, that a train that they thought was going to Shoreham can only go to Brighton, and then there's no information as to how they get from Brighton to Shoreham to Worthing or whatever. Young women travelling late at night, and trains get cancelled and they get stranded. I've heard tales of certain trains being put on a sort of slow line because they're so late already that they've reached all their maximum penalty targets just in order to let some less late trains go through. The whole thing is a shambles, and we got very little reassurance today other than they're on the case and they know how bad they are and they need to do something about it. My constituents and my patience and that of my fellow MPs is really running out, and people are legitimately questioning, why should this lot still be running our trains? When are they going to get stripped of their franchise? I think that's a legitimate question to ask. The trouble is, who then takes over? It's not quite as simple as that. So what are we doing? I will continue to post the updates on my website. We've now called urgently for a summit meeting with the Rail Minister, Claire Perry, again, to involve Network Rail, GTR, Transport Focus, and the officials from the Department of Transport and others, with all the MPs, to see 6 months on from when we had that big powwow back in January, exactly what are they doing, and to try and get some timescale and some idea of when this dispute may be over, when things may start to get back to normal, so people can actually plan. So I'm really sorry to all my constituents for the real problems they're having. I absolutely acknowledge your pain. We are absolutely going to keep on the case of GTR on their management and constantly remind them they are doing a rubbish job for passengers at the moment, and they need to get their act together. Thanks for listening on this very rainy day.